Welcome to a new season of Bake, Decorate, Celebrate. I'm Beth Madlin, and this is Nancy Seiler, your decorating expert.
This season, we've made a few changes that we hope will inspire your decorating. We're going on location to the test kitchen with Beth Summers to see how our recipes are developed. We'll take a behind-the-scenes look at choosing the ingredients.
Nancy also will be doing a new weekly tool segment from the test kitchen, helping you to learn about some of the most basic components of baking. You'll also meet Angie Thayer, Diana Rodriguez, and me for our new segment called Busy Moms. We've got quick last-minute ideas for your family.
To get started, we picked beautiful blossoms as our first theme. You may have added flowers to your cakes, but these are pretty amazing. We start with a Calla Lily cake. These absolutely exquisite blooms elevate the simplest cake to a special event. Then it's our first Busy Mom segment with Beth. Learn how wraps and picks can make a cupcake fit just about any occasion.
Next, it's our first visit to the test kitchen for a delicious cannoli cake recipe with Nancy and Beth Summers. We'll finish decorating with blossoms back here at our kitchen. And finally, it's must-have measuring basics with Nancy. So let's take a look at our first design, the beautiful Calla Lily cake.
Those are so popular now. They look so elegant. And you know what I like about Calla Lilies is they come in so many different colors now, so you don't have to do just the white. I always loved them in white, but those colors are just absolutely amazing.
That cake is done in fondant.
It's covered in fondant, and then it has the fondant handkerchief on top. So let's talk about fondant. What it is, it's a rollable icing. It's kind of like modeling clay, but you roll it out like cookie dough. So I'm just going to show you how to cover a cake. You start out with a cake that's been lightly iced, and then if you have any like little ridges, after it's dry a little bit, you can kind of pat it down in. And what the fondant does, it actually works like an adhesive to hold, what the buttercream icing does, it holds the fondant in place. It also gives it a little bit of a sweet taste. And I want to tell you, you want to measure up, across, and down to make sure you have enough fondant rolled out to cover. And then you'll just lay it on top.
We're showing you a small one just so it can be done a little faster.
Yeah, we can do it a little bit more quickly.
But this can work for any shaped cake. Fondant goes on any types.
Well, we have the oval. There's a lot of different shapes out there. There's a paisley, there's diamonds, there's floral, rounds, squares. And so as I get closer to having this finished, I'm going to come along and cut some of it off. Now, you want to make a first cut where you're only cutting a little bit, and you want to leave a little bit more, so if I have to come back, I could cut some more. And because we have a border on this, we don't have to be perfect here, but you can see I'm actually pretty good. I have a little bit of icing peeping out, but I'm not going to worry about that because I'm putting a border around it. So you just continue to do all of that around until you have the entire cake covered. Use the heat of your hand. If you have any little marks, I have nails, so sometimes I stick a mark on there, and you can just run the warmth of your hand over the across the top of it, and it kind of goes away. So that's basically how you're going to cover your cake with fondant.
May I take this out of the way? Okay.
Next, I want to go to making the Calla Lily. And with the Calla Lily, you see I have the fondant covered, and the reason I have the fondant covered is because it tends to dry out. Now, if you have some fondant that you've rolled out and you get that phone call and you do go talk without covering your fondant, you can take some vegetable shortening and knead a little bit in to give it some pliability. Now, this is actually a Calla Lily set that you can purchase, but what it is basically a fat heart and a cone shape. So we'll just make one. So I'm cutting it. I'm going to pick it up. I can't ever do without my spatula. And then I'm going to kind of thin the edges because that doesn't look quite as fine as what I want.
Looks like you're using some sort of foam or sponge.
Yeah,
here.
I'm using the sponge, and I'm thinning just the edge.
With a tool.
This is called a ball tool. And I'm just doing the edge because I want the other to still be very stable. And you see I'm curling it a little bit. You can make your Calla Lilies I like mine a little more curly, but some people like them more basic. Then on your cone, what you're going to want to do is you want to put a little bit of cornstarch confectioner's sugar combination so that it doesn't stick. And then you're going to take the heart part, or the top part of the heart, and you're going to wrap it around. and just tuck it in. Now, you could use some fondant adhesive, and fondant adhesive would be taking your fondant and just diluting it with water.
Which I
this
have
is
right here.
moist enough that I don't really need to do that. But then I'm going to come here and I'm actually going to curl this back so you get a little bit of a natural look to how the Calla Lily is.
Very pretty.
Now, right before we started taping, I did this one. So this is kind of what it looks like. You'll see I have some of the cornstarch in there. I can actually stick my finger in there. I could take the little brush, you know, a dry brush, and brush it out. But you see, I like mine curled. Now, let's finish this one up. You also will need to do a calyx,
Which is?
which is the little green part that wraps around
you
it.
You know all the anatomy for
Actually,
plants.
I don't. I'm horrible at this. I have to think about it. So what I did is like a medium round cutter in like 3 size is what I'm doing. And then I'm just going to wrap this around. You can see the straight side goes at the bottom. And I just kind of wrap it around and tuck it. And like I said, if it doesn't feel like it's sticking to you really well, you can use the fondant adhesive. I like to, if I don't have to, not use the fondant adhesive, then I don't have to worry if I get too much on there. So that's just the little green part that kind of covers the bottom of the flower.
And then we have a center part, right?
We have a center part, and that's called sepal. See, I have to think about that. Another circle, same size, cut it in half, and this way, you know, because I'm kind of a free spirit, so I would normally just grab some fondant and start rolling it.
Right.
But what you can do for uniformity is use, you know, a pattern.
Sure.
And you can, you want it a little bit fatter on one side, and you're basically just kind of making an elongated cone.
Okay, with a little bit of a point to the end.
So what we're going to do is put some additional pizzazz on it. This is just some colored sugars. Now this doesn't roll in as well unless you have some adhesive. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit on one side, stick it down there, put it on the other side, and then I'm just going to kind of put it on top, and then I'm going to get my finger dirty and just roll it in there. And then I'll put it off to the side and let it dry. And what I would do is if I was doing a whole bunch of these, I would do all of them at one time.
A couple days in advance of when the cake needs to be ready.
You know, you easily could. Here's some I did right before we started the show. I'll take my little Calla Lily here, and then I'm going to put a little bit of glue in there. If it's still wet when you do it, I've done these wet and I've done these dry. But you can see you just stick that in there, and doesn't that look just like a really natural
Beautiful.
Calla Lily?
Are we going to add some other things to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What we can do is, this is pearl dust, and with the pearl dust, you can actually dust the leaves and make some accent. You've got pink. Oh, here. Now this will be a little soft. You can take it off and brush it though.
Okay.
If you want some additional glitter, you can come along here like this and just, I should probably do it over the dish. I'll have a glittered apron. But that's okay.
Dip, maybe flick.
Dip, yeah, and it depends on how much you want on there.
Right.
I've got yellow on the orange. Oh, you're doing it down the center. You could do the whole thing if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
you can see it just adds a little extra kick.
It does. Now we
to
have
it.
a kind of a handkerchief to this. So
Yeah, well, let me do the leaf.
Okay.
The leaf, I'm just going back and I'm going to use the same green that I used for the Calla Lily, for the Calyx. Yeah, Calyx sepal. And then if you want to vein your leaf, you can, I like to use the heavier one, you can come down here, put some little lines like this. I tend to pull it out a little bit. It looks a little bit more like a holly leaf, but you know, it's kind of what I call a fantasy leaf, but that's how you do your leaves.
We have about a minute just to play with the handkerchief part because I really want to see what that looks like.
Okay, with that, you want to use a pattern, especially if you're using an oval. And so you want to cut your pattern out. You can use a fondant cutter. Obviously, you can see I like using a spatula, but there are tools that you can get that are even better than using a spatula. And if you get a little bit of a rugged edge when you're working with fondant, just tuck it in. And then this is a punch set to where, you know, this is going to be at the base. So you can just imprint it if you want, or you can cut all the way through. My fondant's a little thicker, so I'm going to just leave it like that. And then what you could do is just hang it over the edge. Put that on. Okay, rope. When you make your rope, just like you did as a kid, make your rope border.
Make it bigger.
Make it bigger than you need it, because you can always cut it off.
And remember, you can use adhesive if your fondant is dry.
Yes, and then you could leave it just like that if you wanted, but go ahead and press down with that little shell.
Oh, how fun is that?
And it just gives it an extra little bit of pizzazz, and it kind of matches the handkerchief that we were building on top. And then the only other thing you have to do is just start putting your flowers and your leaves on top.
And let's see our final one, because that, of course, is finished and very lovely. And we'll be right back.